The story began with a boy who thought there was absolutely no chance for them, yet he wondered faintly if there could still be some possibility. He then states that if that happens, then they should not meet each other again. The story shifted towards a girl who was quietly praying to God, begging for help and passing her college entrance exam. Her name was Jeong Yi-Han, and on that very day, the final admission results were being released. She felt overwhelmed with frustration and fear, worrying that if she failed, she would not have the courage to look into her aunt's and uncle's eyes. The very thought of not making the cut made her sick to her stomach, and she muttered to herself in despair. She knew especially that Chio would not let her live it down if she failed. On top of that, her gaze fell upon a photograph, and she admitted inwardly that she would feel too ashamed to face her mother and elder brother in heaven. 11 years earlier, on a cold February day, both her mother and brother had tragically lost their lives in a car accident. A bus had slipped during a heavy snowstorm and collided with the vehicle they were in. At only 9 years old, she was left completely alone in the house, and for various reasons, she continued living there even after the accident. The only reason she managed to survive until then was because of her uncle, her aunt, and Chio Oppa. She reminded herself that it was useless to indulge in pessimistic thoughts. She thanked in her heart the family next door who had cared for her all these years and convinced herself that things would work out as long as she continued praying. When she finally looked at the results, she discovered she had successfully passed and secured her place in the art college's design department. A surge of joy filled her, and she rushed next door, calling out excitedly for her aunt, uncle, and Chio as she stepped inside their house with beaming happiness. She declared proudly that she had passed. Her uncle and aunt stood stunned for a moment before her uncle's eyes welled up with tears. With his voice trembling, he said that as he had expected from their little girl, he knew she could achieve it. Her aunt shook her head at him, remarking whether he was seriously crying on such a happy day. They both told Jeong Yi-Han that all her hard work had finally paid off and that she had made them truly proud. Jeong Yi-Han thanked them sincerely, her heart swelling with gratitude. Then she asked about Chio's whereabouts, only for him to suddenly appear from behind, teasing her by asking if she had been looking for him. Surprised, she questioned when he had come in, and he simply replied that he was now her junior and offered her warm congratulations. Jeong Yi-Han thanked him, hugging her aunt again, while her uncle continued wiping his tears. Her thoughts drifted back to 11 years ago when it was Chio who had comforted her in her darkest times. She remembered telling him she had no one left in the world, but he had scolded her gently, asking why she would ever think that. He promised he would always be with her, loving her even more than a mother and father could. From that day onward, Chio, though only 2 years older, treated her like his real younger sister. When his parents learned of her situation, they opened their arms to her as if she were their own daughter, and her aunt even told her when she was young to call her mother from then on. Thanks to Chio, she had truly found a place in the world. Her aunt's voice interrupted her thoughts, reminding her that she had not eaten anything yet because she had been too nervous about the results. They had already expected this outcome and prepared a feast in advance. Jeong Yi-Han laughed nervously and asked what they would have done if she had failed. Her aunt dismissed the thought immediately, asking why she was even saying such a thing. Chio spoke up, telling her that the food would get cold and she should not worry about such matters. He added that even though she lived just next door, she should at least enjoy a warm meal with them. Jeong Yi-Han thought to herself that they did not have to go through all that trouble, and the kindness made her feel as though she might be intruding. Looking around, she noticed some packed items and wondered what all of it meant. She asked her aunt when she had prepared everything, but her aunt only told her to make sure to eat slowly since there were many dishes. Chio, looking at the feast, remarked with mock annoyance that when he had passed, they had only given him a card. His father responded with a laugh that he should only compare things that were actually comparable. Her aunt then urged Jeong Yi-Han to eat plenty of ribs since she liked them, and Jeong Yi-Han agreed, commenting that they were indeed delicious. She added softly that they really did not have to go through such trouble for her, insisting she should be the one thanking them. Chio cut in, insisting she should thank him instead, since she had passed because of him. Jeong Yi-Han sighed, thinking how he always brought that up, but she admitted inwardly that it was indeed because of him she had managed to succeed. Chio excelled in both academics and practical skills, earning the top admission spot at Korean University. Yet, being unpredictable, he enlisted in the military right after his admission. When he came home on leave, instead of visiting his friends, he came directly to see her. She had then asked him why he would not visit his friends during leave, and he had shrugged, saying he had none since he enlisted immediately after admission. She remembered Chio glaring at her when he teased her, saying that once he was discharged, she should make sure to do well on her CSA SAT so she could apply for the same university and same department as his. His words had spurred her on, and she had gritted her teeth in determination, devoting herself to studies. Back then, he had been quick-witted and mature, but nowadays she often found herself unable to figure him out. Her uncle then reminded her gently of something she had said earlier. He told her that she was family, and that it was disappointing to hear her talk as if she were a burden. He reassured her that they had never considered it any trouble and only wanted to show that they cared. No matter what anyone said, she would always remain the youngest daughter of their household. Jeong Yi-Han was deeply moved and thanked them again, scolding herself inwardly for having spoken so carelessly. She realized that both her uncle and aunt treated her with such love, yet she had doubted it for even a moment. As the meal continued, Jeong Yi-Han thought it was fortunate she had studied so hard. She kept eating, the dishes piling up in front of her, making Chio wonder where all the food was even going. She promised herself that once she secured a job, she would repay everything she had received from them. No, she would give back even more. Her aunt laughed warmly, warning her to eat slowly, or else she might upset her stomach. Jeong Yi-Han asked if it looked like they were redoing their interior. Her aunt, with a saddened gesture, called her name. Jeong Yi-Han answered quietly, noticing how her aunt's expression had darkened. Her aunt placed a gentle hand on Jeong Yi-Han's hand and told her that no matter how far apart they were, they would still remain family, as she and her husband had always thought of her as their real daughter. Jeong Yi-Han felt delighted hearing those words and was about to respond that she also considered them her real parents. But her aunt suddenly apologized and explained that they were moving tomorrow, as the grandmother living in Busan had grown weaker that year. She added that they had no choice but to go, confessing that they wanted to tell her earlier but could not bring themselves to do it, fearing it might be too difficult for her. After some time, Jeong Yi-Han went to Chio's room. She knocked on his door loudly and asked if she could come in. Chio gave her permission. Jeong Yi-Han thanks him as she stepped inside. She noticed immediately that his bags were already packed. Sitting down on a chair, she thought about what she should say. With his parents, she always felt at ease, but being alone with him made things strangely difficult. She asked Chio if he would not be starting school immediately. He replied vaguely, saying something like that. Jeong Yi-Han grew frustrated, thinking he had once insisted he wanted to attend school with her, yet now he acted casually, as if it had meant nothing. She wondered if his words had been empty talk, and if she had only expected too much. Wanting to always be together seemed to be her selfish wish alone. Chio asked what it was and leaned closer, telling her to speak if she had something to say. She replied that it was nothing. Chio teased her, asking if she thought he would eat her. With a bitter smile, he added that she must have felt disappointed at the thought of him leaving, and asked why she wanted to live with him. When she stood, he looked at her seriously, urging her to be honest. Shocked, she inwardly admitted she could not say it, though he already seemed to know. Chio thought she did not know how to be greedy. Jeong Yi-Han then said it was fine, reminding him that they were not real family anyway, and the fact that he had looked after her all this time was already more than enough. Chio answered that if they were not real family, then his question had been pointless. As he left, he patted her head and apologized, leaving her shaken. She realized she had spoken words she never truly wanted to say. Of course, she wished to live with him, but even if she said it, nothing would change. She wondered if she was about to be left alone again, the same way she once was, in a cold and empty house. Her aunt's words echoed in her mind, about still being family, no matter the distance. But Jeong Yi-Han thought otherwise. If they were apart, they were not family. Being the only one left behind felt no different from being truly alone. Jeong Yi-Han stops the Chio and states that she had not meant to deny their bond. She only feared being left in the darkness once more, and in her sorrow, words slipped out without thought. Even if she spoke honestly, nothing would change since the decision was already made. Still, she wished she could live with him. For the first time, Jeong Yi-Han expressed her true feeling. The anxiety that had long weighed her down seemed to fade slightly, as if speaking the words aloud might make them real. She thought Chio must have grown tired of her, yet to her surprise, he praised her. He told her she had done well to finally say what she wanted, encouraging her to stop being afraid and to allow herself to be a little selfish sometimes, assuring her he had no problem with it. Jeong Yi-Han was taken aback by his words, realizing he was still as mature as she remembered. But then he added that she should not make people worry about her over such matters. At that, Jeong Yi-Han took back what she had just thought about his maturity. Chio then remarked that since she had said what she wanted, it could not be helped. Confused, she asked what he meant. He only told her she would find out tomorrow. The next day, as her aunt and uncle prepared to leave, they mentioned hearing from Chio the night before. Her uncle jokingly warned her to be careful with him. Surprised, Jeong Yi-Han asked what they had heard. Her aunt explained that Chio had told them she wanted to live with him, and that thanks to her, they now felt relieved. Shocked, Jeong Yi-Han could hardly respond as her aunt continued, saying they were glad she had decided to take responsibility for their troublesome son instead. Her aunt reminded her to eat well and advised her to kick him out if he misbehaved. Her uncle told her to visit them often. As they left, they promised to contact her once they arrived in Busan. Chio waved them off, asking them to tell grandmother he sent his regard. Jeong Yi-Han, still stunned, turned to Chio and demanded to know what was happening, asking if it was because of what she had said the day before. Chio looked at her calmly and asked why she looked so surprised, reminding her that she had told him she wanted to live with him. Finally, with a faint smile, he told her to take care of him from then on. Jeong Yi-Han thought that a place called home felt strange to her, as it was nothing more than a space enclosed by 4 square walls. But when it was filled with warm voices calling to one another and the smell of dinner drifting through the rooms, it became a real home. To her, though, it was just a space that could never be filled again. She had already forgotten that feeling until Chio said he was looking forward to living with her. Jeong Yi-Han wondered what it was like to live with someone again. Her face warmed, and she admitted she was looking forward to it as well. Then she grew flustered, asking what he meant by that. Chio reminded her that yesterday she had said if possible, she would like to live together with him. Jeong Yi-Han quickly clarified that she had obviously meant living together with mom and dad. Chio, however, replied that he had taken it as her not wanting to be apart from him. He repeated the same thing again, stressing it in a way that left her frustrated. She wondered who in the world would interpret it like that. Then Chio lowered himself and asked if she was kicking him out now. His words only made things harder for her, since that was not the point at all, and she could not find a way to answer. When she exhaled, Chio noticed her cool breath and suggested suggested they talk inside since it was cold outside. She agreed and turned toward the door, though she hesitated before opening it. Seeing her pause, Chio told her to just open it. She stubbornly refused. Chio teased, asking if she was hiding something dangerous inside or perhaps a man. Flustered, she denied it, saying it was nothing like that. Then Chio states that honestly though, he looked more suspicious than her at that moment. Leaning close to her ear, Chio whispered that since their middle school days she had never once invited him in, even though he had waited as promised. He said he had kept waiting until she called him, but she never did, and he admitted he was a little hurt by it. Clenching her fist, Jeong Yi-Han finally opened the door. She told him it was not because she had not wanted to invite him, but because she simply could not. Chio frowned and asked what she meant. She explained softly that she had not wanted him to feel hurt. Confused, Chio stepped inside, only to be stunned by what he saw. The home was completely empty. Nothing filled it, and the hollow space under the roof felt like a bottle filled with loneliness. It was wide, bare, and desolate, eerily similar to Jeong Yi-Han herself. He questioned if this was really all there was. Jeong Yi-Han smiled faintly and replied that it might not look like much, but it was clean and easy to tidy up. Since she lived alone, she did not need much. Chio shook his head, saying if she truly thought this was okay, then either he had a problem or she did. He reminded her that she had not been like this when she was young. Jeong Yi-Han smiled again and admitted she had been too young back then to know what to do. By the time she came to her senses, there had not been much left worth keeping, so she had thrown everything away. She ended with a forced smile, claiming that was all there was to it. Trying to brighten the mood, she confidently added that Yi-jun's Oppa room was perfectly fine, while her own room was a complete mess. Chio looked at her in confusion, asking if he was supposed to praise her for that. She nodded seriously, saying yes, that was exactly what she meant. He then asked if his parents already knew about this place. Jeong Yi-Han said of course. They had plenty to clean here. That made Chio realize they had simply left him out. He glanced around again and muttered whatever, which confused Jeong Yi-Han. She asked what he was trying to say. Chio replied that if there was a lot to fill, then it was good for him, as he slipped off his jacket. His words left Jeong Yi-Han puzzled. Then she noticed him shivering and grew shocked. Jeong Yi-Han had forgotten why he had even come there in the first place. She asked directly why he wanted to live there. She reminded him that he had been planning to extend his leave from school. Chio corrected her, saying he had never said that. It was only her assumption. Her irritation rose at his words. She snapped back, asking what he thought mom and dad would say. Chio revealed calmly that actually they had liked the idea. His father had confessed they were worried about her living alone, so living together was much better. Even his mother had admitted she worried that he might be too much for her to handle. Jeong Yi-Han grabbed onto that, muttering that knowing them, it was very likely true. Chio agreed. He added that by the time he checked, all the nearby rooms close to school had already been taken by freshmen. The cheaper ones left were either in basements or in terrible condition. Then he looked at her seriously and asked about a certain room. Jeong Yi-jun's Jeong Yi-Han stiffened in shock before confirming it. Chio asked if he could use it. He entered the room and found it surprisingly well maintained and perfectly clean. No dust at all covered the space. He examined a medal on display and asked if it was real gold, saying it looked convincing. Without thinking, he put it in his mouth. Jeong Yi-Han froze as a memory flashed. Her brother had once done the same thing. The moment felt painfully familiar. Jeong Yi-jun commented that it tasted fake. The curator might have said it was real gold, but in his opinion, he had been scammed. Chio then called her name and asked what she was thinking about. Jeong Yi-Han quickly took the medal back, scolding him for acting like a child. She reminded him he was not a kid anymore, so why would he put it in his mouth? Chio laughed and replied that he had only been curious. He then sat down on the chair, leaning back comfortably, and commented that even the chair fit him perfectly. Jeong Yi-Han muttered that Yi-jun must have been a pretty big boy. Jeong Yi-Han called Chio Oppa and told him she would say it one last time. Chio looked at her and questioned what it was. She firmly said he could not live there with her. She asked if he did not realize how strange it would look to anyone else. Chio replied casually that she did not need to worry, since no one would get the wrong idea. She answered that she could not help but worry. She reminded him she was already 20, a full adult, and they went to the same school and even the same department. She asked what if someone saw them together. For her, no matter how close they had been since childhood, the truth was that they were not real siblings. She added that it would feel uncomfortable for him too, and for her as well. She only smiled and told her he was not uncomfortable though. Frustrated, she raised her voice, demanding that he take her words seriously at least once. He raised his opinion that it was fine. Then he asked her if it was really something worth worrying about. He pointed out that the odds of them seeing each other that way were 0, not even 1%. Jeong Yi-Han frowned and asked what if. Chio looked at her seriously and said if there ever was such a chance, then they would never see each other again. Jeong Yi-Han was stunned on hearing it. He told her she was Yi-jun's sister, which made her his sister too. His words left her stunned. The way he spoke so easily about never seeing each other again shook her. He then added that some lines should never be crossed. It was the first time she had heard such words from him, and she could not believe he could speak about family so casually. Kahaz and Tubid reached out and took her hand, asking what her answer was. Jeong Yi-han's thoughts became tangled, and she apologized, admitting that even if he was her oppa, she could not bring herself to agree completely. Chio then said that just until he found a place, it would be fine between them. He asked her if that much was okay. She looked at his bags and asked if all his big things things had already been moved. Chio replied that the larger items were still next door. She nodded and told him she would head out while he unpacked, adding that he should call her if he needed anything. Chio gave a simple okay. As she walked out of the room, her cheeks grew warm. She asked herself what in the world she had just agreed to. The thought of actually living with Chio for a while made her heart race, and she admitted she had said yes too easily. She wondered if she should bring the matter up again, but then thought if she took it back now, he would have nowhere else to go. She questioned herself, asking if she was the only one finding this situation complicated. Her mind replayed his earlier words about them never seeing each other again. She told herself not to overthink it. Chio was Yi-jun Oppa's friend, which made him practically a real brother to her. While they were living together, she would just pretend everything was normal. She decided to think of it as slowly repaying her Oppa until he found a new place. Jeong Yi-Han reminded herself she did not have time for this kind of confusion. She thought the least she could do was help him get settled. Opening the door, she asked Chio if there was anything she could do to help him. To her shock, when she looked inside, she found him in the middle of changing his clothes. As Chio, startled, called out in surprise, asking what was wrong. Embarrassed, Jeong Yi-Han stammered that she had not known and should have knocked first. She quickly added that she would leave immediately, turning to go, but her foot stumbled forward. Before she could fall, Chio reached out and pulled her against his chest, asking gently what the matter was. Pressed so close to him, Jeong Yi-Han felt her face burn bright red. Her voice shook as she muttered that she had only been wondering if she could help him. Her thoughts scrambled as she tried not to look directly at his bare chest, questioning inwardly why his clothes had to be off at that exact moment. Chio chuckled and pointed out that she was the one who had walked in without knocking. To lighten the mood, he added that he had simply been cold and wanted to change into a long-sleeve shirt. Jeong Yi-Han mumbled that she had not turned on the furnace yet, so perhaps the house was still taking time to warm up. But Chio grinned, saying she was really funny, and asked why she was so shocked. After all, she had seen him like this countless times when they were children. His words stirred memories within her. She remembered those summers at the beach when they were in middle school, how freely they had played under the sun without caring about such things. Still, she pulled back slightly and insisted that it was different now. Chio stiffened at her words, his expression unreadable. Realizing the weight in the silence, Jeong Yi-Han hurried to explain. She apologized quickly, promising she would be more careful in the future, telling herself she should leave right away. But Chio suddenly asked her if she meant they were different now. Confused, she tried to clarify, insisting she had not meant it that way. She muttered clumsily that it was not them. The vague phrasing only seemed to agitate him further, and she noticed he looked oddly ticked off. Scrambling to fix her mistake, she blurted out that what she meant was that his body was different. The realization of her own words hit her too late, and her face burned hotter. She admitted awkwardly that it was her first time seeing an actual guy's body. Chio blinked, stunned by her statement, and asked what she had just said. Unable to bear the weight of the moment, Jeong Yi-Han stuttered something about needing to change the blanket and hurried toward the laundry. She insisted she would also wash his blanket and told him to let her know if he needed anything. She promised to bring him a new blanket later, then ran off before he could say another word. Chio was left laughing, shaking his head. Stuffing her face into the blanket, Jeong Yi-Han groaned at how much she had embarrassed herself. She thought that she had said far too much. From the other room, she could still hear Chio laughing, and she muttered for him to stop. But Chio only thought to himself that she was driving him crazy. She had always been this way, awkward, clumsy, and endearingly foolish. He told himself he should not have changed there in the first place, then thought about how much she still reminded him of the younger sibling he had grown up with. As the washing machine hummed in the background, Jeong Yi-Han sighed and told herself it had been a while since she last washed the blanket. Suddenly, a sound behind her caught her attention, and she turned quickly. To her surprise, Chio was already outside lifting the sofa. She rushed forward, asking what he was doing. Chio, straining with the weight, explained that he was moving his thing. Jeong Yi-Han's eyes widened as she recognized the sofa from his parents' house. She demanded to know why he had brought that with him. He explained that his mother had told him to take anything he needed. Jeong Yi-Han frowned, reminding him that he was only supposed to stay until he found a new place. She asked why he was bringing so much if it was temporary. Chio shrugged, saying that everything his family needed was at his grandmother's place anyway, so it was fine. He pointed toward the wall and remarked that the television should be placed across from the couch. Jeong Yi-Han cried out, telling him to wait, but Chio waved her off and told her not to even think of helping him. He warned that it would bother him if she hurt herself. He added that he was the type who needed to work up a sweat before he could sleep anyway. Jeong Yi-Han stood frozen, unsure of how to respond. Her gaze shifted toward the plants sitting nearby. She thought silently that filling them with life only meant they would eventually wither and die. Leaving them empty was easier. There would be nothing to lose, and nothing painful to remember. Chio, glancing at her silent figure, wondered what kind of reaction she was having. Meanwhile, Jeong Yi-Han slipped into her room and lay on the bed. She whispered to herself that Chio deserved to be comfortable while he stayed here. Then she scolded herself for being an idiot. She asked what was so wrong about having a piece of furniture in the house. She realized the truth. She had not wanted to live with him because she was afraid of being seen in her vulnerable state. Her thoughts drifted to a memory from long ago. She remembered a day when she had pleaded with her mother not to leave, telling her she felt sick with a fever. But her mother had apologized, explaining that her brother had a competition and she had to take him there. Jeong Yi-Han had cried out in frustration, accusing her mother mother of caring only for her brother. She had shouted that her mother liked him more. Shocked, her mother had raised her voice, asking what nonsense she was saying. Her mother had insisted that Jeong Yi-Han was precious to her, apologizing for neglecting her. She had asked what Jeong Yi-Han wanted to eat, promising to bring it back. Still upset, Jeong Yi-Han had said she wanted cake, knowing she was being petty but wanting her mother to think of her while she was gone. Her mother had smiled gently and told her that her brother would win a gold medal that day, and that Jeong Yi-Han's fever would soon get better. She had promised it would be a good day. Jeong Yi-Han awoke from the dream with tears stinging her eyes. She muttered bitterly that it was the same dream again. Just as her mother had promised, that day had indeed been good. Her brother won the gold medal, her fever faded, and her mother had kept her promise, returning with the cake. But after that came the accident. Jeong Yi-Han clenched her fists, wondering if she had not asked for the cake that day, would her mother and brother still be alive? She whispered an apology to her brother, believing her childish selfishness had driven them away. She told herself she could not fill this house with things, because if she alone was happy here, it would feel like betraying her mother and brother. But with Chio in the house, she felt her happiness being measured by fleeting moments of time. Glancing at the clock, she wondered how long she had been asleep. She hurried out, apologizing for dozing off, but then froze. The entire place had been transformed. The blankets were neatly laid out, the furniture arranged, the space warm and lived in. She stood in shock, realizing Chio must have worked hard by himself. Stepping outside, she whispered that he must have gone somewhere. She decided to get some fresh air and headed toward the rooftop. The chill wind made her shiver, but the cold cleared her thoughts. She told herself she was awake now. As she leaned against the railing, her gaze drifted toward the pole. Suddenly, her breath caught. There was someone there. For an instant, she wondered if her eyes were deceiving her. The figure standing by the water looked so much like her brother. Her heart thudded painfully. She whispered his name in disbelief. Yi-jun. Once in a while, Jeong Yi-Han wondered what Yi-jun would look like if he were still alive. Would he have grown taller than her? Would the smile in his eyes still be the same? Would his voice sound just as she remembered? She thought about whether he would have continued as a judo athlete or chosen a completely different path. The figure she had only ever imagined now seemed to be standing right in front of her. She tried to compose herself, thinking that she must have been mistaken again, as this happened every year when his death anniversary approached. She questioned herself, asking why she was acting like this once more. When she blinked her eyes, the person seemed to wave at her. She froze, unable to contain the rush in her chest. Without another thought, she ran out, telling herself that even while running, some part of her already knew it was just a delusion, meaningless and fleeting. Yet even so, she still wanted to check just once more. She still wanted to believe for a moment longer as she ran out calling for him. Just then, Chio was coming in, thinking about Jeong Yi-Han, who always had a way of making people worry. He noted that she didn't seem sick, at least not outwardly. He told himself that maybe bringing something would cheer her up a little. He smiled faintly, thinking that even if she said she wouldn't eat, she always gave in eventually. He thought she looked quite shocked when he brought groceries without asking. Still, he realized she must already be on edge with the death anniversary approaching. He admitted to himself that he shouldn't have stirred things up, but decided that when he got home, he would try to calm her. As he was walking, he caught sight of Jeong Yi-Han running out. He questioned why she was outside, wondering if she came looking for him because he hadn't answered. But seeing her running in the middle of winter dressed so lightly filled him with concern. He called out, stating that he was right there, but he was left shocked to see her in such a state. He ran towards her, grabbing her shoulders, asking what had happened while he was gone and whether she was hurt. He urged her to let him see her face. She shook her head, saying that she had only seen a man walking nearby. Chio demanded she tell him who it was, insisting that he would take her to him himself. Jeong Yi-Han, stammering, tried to explain. She said she thought she had seen Yi-jun. She knew it must have been someone who looked like him, but still, she admitted she wanted to see him just once more. Crying out, she confessed that no matter how much she looked, she couldn't find him. She told herself she should stop, yet she didn't know how. Chio noticed how tightly her hand clung to him, though her memory clung to someone else entirely. He thought about how far he was allowed to comfort her. Kneeling down, he told her that not knowing how to stop wasn't wrong. Forgetting someone wasn't easy, and it didn't make her foolish. If she wanted to keep searching, she should, but she must not confuse herself, because Yi-jun wasn't someone she was meant to find anymore. Yi-jun was someone she needed to let go. He thought she didn't have to question how long she had to keep chasing someone who would never return. Jeong Yi-Han took a moment, staring down at her shoes, which looked far too big and awkward but still familiar. Wearing them made her feel a little steadier. She quietly thanked Chio and suggested they go home. As they walked back, Jeong Yi-Han wondered why they were still holding hands, almost embarrassed by the thought. She questioned him, but before she could finish, Chio reminded her about the groceries. Pulling out a slightly crushed fish, he explained that he had shoved it into his pocket in a hurry. It was fish, though now degraded. He told her that when she was little, she used to wait all year for winter just to have one of these. He said with a sigh that winter probably didn't mean much anymore. Before he could tell her to throw it away, Jeong Yi-Han surprised him by eating it. Shocked, Chio asked why she was eating it when it was old. She smiled faintly, saying it still tasted good, and it had been such a long time. She thought it was still warm somehow, and while eating, she called out to him, stating that she was glad they were like family. She told him that she really liked him. Chio blushed furiously, muttering what nonsense, though inside he was moved. He thought that just like that, their new daily life had begun. It didn't take long for them to realize that living together required more effort than expected. For example, standing in front of the fridge, Jeong Yi-Han stared stared at the emptiness, realizing how unprepared she was. She admitted to herself that she hardly ever ate at home, so she never thought about stocking up. Now, she would have to be more responsible. She sighed, saying that they would just eat ramen for breakfast, proudly showing her large collection. Chio frowned, saying he suspected she had been living on ramen all this time, making her nervous. Embarrassed, she quickly offered to go get groceries immediately, but Chio stopped her, saying he would just order food instead. She felt relieved and thanked him. Later, when the delivery arrived, the delivery man looked surprised. He muttered that it had been a while since he had seen her face. He remembered vividly the first time he delivered here and met a beauty he couldn't forget. Since then, he had looked forward to every delivery. He thought to himself that the orders were always for one person, and he had never noticed any sign of others living there. He assumed she lived alone in this big house and worried, thinking it was dangerous these days for a woman to live by herself. He even wondered what would happen if she came across someone creepy. As the door opened, however, Chio appeared instead, leaving the delivery man stunned, while the man, still petrified, asked what had happened. He asked whether she had moved out, saying he thought a woman lived here alone. He questioned if he was mistaken. Before Chio could reply, Jeong Yi-Han appeared behind him, asking what was going on and whether something was wrong. Delivery man quickly nodded, confirming that she did still live there, but Chio smirked, shutting the door with a firm statement. He declared that she didn't live there alone anymore. This was no longer a single-occupant home. Afterwards, Chio called out for Jeong Yi-Han, asking if she thought she had been ordering takeout a lot lately. Jeong Yi-Han denied this firmly, though Chio pressed her, asking if she was sure about that. Taking a moment, she stated that maybe once a month at most, and questioned why he was suddenly bringing this up. She wondered aloud if something had happened earlier. Earlier that day, Chio had commented that this was no longer a single-occupant home. Chio had immediately demanded to know how the man knew about this. The delivery person had nervously explained that he had not meant anything strange by the remark. He had stammered, saying that she was simply a regular customer, and sometimes, when making frequent deliveries, he tended to make small talk. He had added that he understood how dangerous it could be for women living alone these days. Chio had acknowledged that it was indeed dangerous, though he had also warned him that one could never be sure who might only be pretending to be friendly. Still, he had thanked him politely for worrying about her. The delivery man had left with a forced smile, but outside, he had cursed under his breath, disgust written all over his face. Chio, however, had acted as though nothing had happened, leaving Jeong Yi-Han slightly unsettled. She told him directly that he had worried her once again. Jeong Yi-Han grew confused, wondering why he was making that serious face since earlier. She even questioned inwardly if he was simply hungry. Chio, however, continued to stare at her and told her not to order delivery anymore when she was alone at home. Jeong Yi-Han asked why, her words implying that it was not such a big deal. Chio replied that it was not just about safety but also about cost, pointing out that delivery was hardly cheap these days. Jeong Yi-Han nodded in agreement, acknowledging the truth in his words. Before she could say more, Chio excused himself, saying that he needed to use the bathroom. Jeong Yi-Han thought that it was fair. After all, it was already lunchtime, and no wonder he was starving. She resolved that next time she would just go to the grocery store in advance. As she opened the order, she noticed her pajamas and wondered if she was perhaps not wearing a bra. She reassured herself that she was fine, thinking that he had probably not noticed. Meanwhile, in the bathroom, Chio washed his face. Jeong Yi-Han thought quietly that ever since the morning he had been acting strangely, and she decided she should be more careful in the future. After the meal, Jeong Yi-Han thanked Chio for treating her. Chio, however, told her directly that if she was done eating, she should just head to her room. Jeong Yi-Han refused, saying that since he had paid, she should clean up. But Chio grabbed her wrist and told her firmly to go, claiming that he was feeling bloated after eating takeout since morning. He added that he would watch television. Perhaps it would help him feel better. Jeong Yi-Han felt uneasy, thinking that he had not made eye contact once during the meal. She wondered if the food had been so bad. She insisted she should at least clear the table, but when she grabbed the order slip, she froze at the bill. She was shocked to see that a simple meal for two had cost nearly 50,000. She thought grimly that from now on, utilities like electricity and gas would also double, because living together meant every expense would multiply. She retreated to her room, her mind sinking into heavy thoughts. She thought about how her aunt had even paid for her tuition, and once the semester began, there would only be more expenses. Though she would be receiving some birthday money, it still did little to ease her worry. She called her aunt, who greeted her warmly, asking what she was up to and whether she had eaten lunch. Jeong Yi-Han replied that she had just eaten with her brother. Her aunt, relieved, mentioned that she and her husband had also finished eating after spending the morning buried in unpacking boxes. Then her aunt asked with a teasing note whether anything had happened last night with Chio. Jeong Yi-Han felt her body stiffen as jitters ran through her. Remembering what had actually happened, she quickly denied it, insisting that nothing had occurred. Her aunt remarked that her voice had cracked slightly. Jeong Yi-Han calmed herself and repeated that nothing had happened, all the while apologizing inwardly. She thought sorrowfully that if she told her aunt the truth, it would only break her heart. Her aunt, sensing her insistence, let the matter go. Just hearing her voice made her aunt miss her even more. From behind, her uncle called out, promising Jeong Yi-Han that they would come visit her soon. Jeong Yi-Han smiled faintly and affirmed that she would wait. Her aunt then mentioned that she had not called only to check in, but also to remind her about the money she had sent earlier, asking if Jeong Yi-Han had checked her balance. When Jeong Jeong Yi-Han looked. She was stunned at the large amount. Her aunt explained gently that since she was now living with Kyo, she would need more money. She told her not to stretch herself thin, only to use it when necessary. Jeong Yi-Han hesitated, but her aunt insisted firmly that she not argue, saying she would be sending this regularly from now on. Before hanging up, her aunt said she would finish unpacking and call her again that night. After the call ended, Jeong Yi-Han thought that she could not just sit around idly. She opened her diary and began writing, deciding that she could not let her worries pile up any further. She resolved to start searching for a part-time job. Meanwhile, after washing up, Kyo felt refreshed but puzzled. He thought critically about how Jeong Yi-Han had been living. The toilet paper was folded oddly, almost like origami, and there was barely any shampoo or toothpaste left. Yet she had acted as if everything was normal. He wondered how she could manage like that. With breakfast out of the way, he thought that maybe they should go grocery shopping together. Before he could bring it up, however, he noticed Jeong Yi-Han rushing out. She called back, saying she would be late. Kyo stopped her, asking where she was going. Jeong Yi-Han answered that she had a part-time job interview as she tied her hair up. Hearing this, Kyo grew exasperated, thinking that she really would not give him a moment's peace. He called out again, asking if she was certain about this. Jeong Yi-Han explained that since classes had not yet started, she figured she could find work in the meantime. Kyo asked if she was short on money. Jeong Yi-Han denied it, insisting that it was not like that. She thought inwardly that she had received too much already, and if she confessed to him that she felt pathetic for accepting money she did not deserve, he would only worry. So instead, she told him that she simply wanted to earn her own allowance now. Kyo paused, then asked her to turn around. Jeong Yi-Han looked puzzled, asking what was wrong. Kyo told her to hold still as he reached out to tie her hair. Jeong Yi-Han was caught off guard, reminiscing silently that her aunt had never really tied her hair when she was a child. It had always been Kyo, even with his clumsy fingers tangling her hair. She remembered how she had never minded. Now, as his hands brushed against her, she felt strangely aware. She thought that maybe he missed the little girl who had once let him do this, not the woman she had become. Kyo, lost in thought, noted that they happened to be using the same shampoo as always. He wondered if she knew that it was not just her hair he wanted to hold. Jeong Yi-Han broke the silence, asking if he was finished because she had to get going. But instead of letting her go, Kyo wrapped his arms around her, hugging her from behind. She froze, her mind racing. Something about him felt different today. His voice, his expression, maybe even her own feeling. She questioned silently whether she was being too insensitive. After all, it had only been a day since they started living together, yet everything already felt like it was changing. As Kyo asked Jeong Yi-Han if he asked her, would she stay out, Jeong Yi-Han realized his unfamiliar gaze and serious tone. The face she had always known suddenly felt distant. His words were not dramatic. Neither were they casual either. There was a pause, almost as if he left room for an answer he could not bring himself to ask for, in that quiet moment where boundaries blurred. She did not know what to say as Jeong Yi-Han stated that she even wore new clothes today, which made Kyo flinch. Jeong Yi-Han added that she splurged on them and should probably go out. Kyo chuckled, hearing this, affirming that sure, she could go out as far as she could, which made Jeong Yi-Han question why he was so cold. She thought he had something important to say, but Kyo denied it, stating that he just wanted some company and wanted her to hang out with him. Jeong Yi-Han asked if she thought it was something serious, for which Kyo cried out, questioning if she did not even feel a little sorry for this poor upperclassman who was back at school with no friends and no classmates. Jeong Yi-Han thought that he always acted like this as she became nervous for no reason, and she called out for him, laughing, stating that the face he made when he asked had made her actually think about staying for a second. She added that anyway, she would be really late if she did not go now. She would call him when she was done, asking him not to worry about her, gratefully thanking him for helping her tie her hair. As Kyo was left alone, he was baffled that just like that, with a smile, she left. Reaching the cafe, it was Jeong Yi-Han's first interview, and no wonder she was nervous. She reminded herself that she should avoid panicking like this. She had not even started yet, and she really should not panic. She was determined that she would just face it head on. A few days later, she did not get any part-time job at the cafe. They preferred someone with previous experience at restaurants. They needed someone to clear tables who could be physically fit. At a convenience store, she was told that she was just going to quit when the semester started anyway. Jeong Yi-Han cried out that all those listings had no experience or gender preference requirements. Her phone rang, and it was Kyo calling, asking how today's interview went. Jeong Yi-Han, quite baffled by his teasing, stated that she was still at a cafe nearby, just killing time. Kyo stated that she was not going to get it either way and should just come home already as he was bored. Jeong Yi-Han stated that was not true, she would just get this one. She had just faced bad luck so far. Kyo asked which interview it was today. Jeong Yi-Han stated that he knew the building. The new board game cafe was opening there. Kyo asked her, stating that the semester started next month and she should not need to push herself so hard. Jeong Yi-Han thought that she supposed he was going to have a lot on his plate as well, and she did not need to stress about this now. She thought that since he was already looking for something permanent, would it not be better to work somewhere he could apply his major? Kyo asked her not to stress herself unnecessarily, which made her think about how this was how he cheered her up. She thought they really were different from others. Kyo stated that it was time time for her to find her own part too, as she did not really get to enjoy anything during high school. All he wanted was for her to start university without any worries and not to worry about money, as he would cover her expenses. Jeong Yi-Han laughed it off, thanking him. She stated that if this one did not work out, she would take it slow. Anyway, it was time for her to go now. Chio tried to stop her, but Jeong Yi-Han thanked him for worrying about her as she laughed. Chio realized that just now it felt like she drew a line. Sometimes it felt like the wall around her suddenly grew taller. He thought he knew her well. She had always been by his side, but that was just an illusion. Jeong Yi-Han only ever showed him what she wanted him to see. She never had any intention of showing him more than that. Jeong Yi-Han thought that it was not like she did not want to take time for herself, but if she let go of all this, everything she had worked for until now might come crashing down, and that terrified her. From behind, someone called out for Jeong Yi-Han, stating that they were leaving. She recalled a friend saying they were heading to the karaoke, questioning if she was going to come. Jeong Yi-Han denied it, saying she did not want people at home to worry about her being late. Others affirmed, questioning what was the point of asking then, remarking that she did not have a little compassion. She thought that making sure Chio did not worry, that was her job, and it was not something anyone forced on her. It was her choice. She got a notification about the interview location and the pinned map. She realized that the location had changed. She moved to the location where a person welcomed her, asking how he could help her. Jeong Yi-Han stated that she was there for the 4 interview. A person came in, thinking that she was early. He was the manager there, and they would hold the interview inside. Jeong Yi-Han affirmed, thanking him, thinking that he seemed gentle and it was a relief. She thought that this time around, she was passing this interview, although this place looked a little odd. The narrow hallways and cluttered rooms kind of felt like a cheap dorm. She thought it was a bit run down, questioning what kind of office this really was. As they opened the door, she questioned if they were doing the interview there, going into the cramped room. The manager stated the cafe was not ready yet, but they were using the office for now, hoping she would understand. Jeong Yi-Han affirmed but thought that she was feeling something was off, hoping she would understand. The manager stated that they should begin. Jeong Yi-Han finished her thoughts as the manager assured her not to be nervous, and just think of it as a chat. He would ask simple questions while keeping things casual. Jeong Yi-Han thought that hearing this relaxed her a bit as he moved on to questioning if it was her first part-time job, if she was at an age where she probably had a lot of friends, and if she thought she could work on weekends. Jeong Yi-Han affirmed that she had plenty of free time and not many friends, so it was all good. After that, the interview felt natural, like a real conversation. It flowed smoothly. The manager laughed that she was quite respectful, and that was not easy to find these days. If she was okay with it, he would love to work with her. Jeong Yi-Han was delighted, thinking that she was worried it would not work this time either, but she was really glad it did. Jeong Yi-Han thanked him, stating that she would do her best. The manager said that someone was happy. She stated that she was actually kind of desperate to find something soon. The manager asked if she was a student at the university, as the tuition must have been quite expensive, stating that her parents must have been helping her. Jeong Yi-Han said that her parents had passed away, so she was receiving help, but she wanted to take care of her things herself from now on. The manager apologized, stating that he should not have brought that up, but Jeong Yi-Han denied it was an issue, as everyone had their own story. The manager stated that, to be honest, he thought she was suited for something different, which made Jeong Yi-Han question him about it. The manager stated that he did not say this to everyone, but quite innocent-looking, calm people like her. Customers usually like that. Jeong Yi-Han thought that something about this felt wrong. The manager stated that she should just think of it like being a companion, and all she had to do was chat. He stated that nothing serious, just pour drinks, no pressure, no skills needed, and even students did it. In today's world, would it not be better to earn money efficiently rather than working for minimum wages? He suggested she try it once, just for experience. Jeong Yi-Han stated that she would pretend she did not hear that and would be leaving now. He stated they all said that at first, but people like her came back again. The manager followed Jeong Yi-Han, stating that she was special, while Jeong Yi-Han was scared, thinking that what truly broke her was not the fear. He saw right through her situation. It was the familiarity of it all, knowing that she was helpless. Just then, the manager grabbed her hair to untie her ponytail, stating that he could see right through her, that she was quite pretty. Jeong Yi-Han was about to cry, thinking that she was standing there, hurt and pathetic. In that moment of collapse, the name that surfaced in her mind was Chio. Just then, Chio appeared before them, sweating, warning the person not to dare lay a hand on his sister. Chio hadn't always called Jeong Yi-Han his little sister. At first, their relationship had been simple. She was the little sister of his next-door friend, and for her, he had been her older brother's friend from next door. There had been nothing special between them, just occasional encounters now and then, small moments of conversation and trivial shared laughter. But on that day, Chio had called Jeong Yi-Han his little sister. In that moment, Jeong Yi-Han remembered the furious Chio, how he had yelled and aggressively told the manager not to lay a hand on her, on his little sister. She had felt deeply moved because that was the first time she had sensed a boundary of protection surrounding her, a line no one could cross. Yet she had been puzzled. How had Chio even known she was there? As Chio had looked toward the manager's hand, he had noticed Jeong Yi-Han's hairband. He remembered how earlier that morning, while fixing Jeong Yi-Han's hair, she had mentioned it kept slipping because of the way he had tied it. He had replied that was why he needed to keep her trying. He had thought about all the other pains Jeong Yi-Han might have endured in places like these when he wasn't around. Chio realizes that silence seemed the perfect response in the quiet tension, a raw raw shield for what could not be said aloud. Chio moved in front of Jeong Yi-Han and remarked that the atmosphere felt strange for a job interview. There had been no board game room anywhere in the building, no sign, and the basement office had not a single CCTV. He had stepped close to the manager, staring into his eyes with a furious glare, and declared that anyone could see this was not an interview but a setup. He then asked the manager why he hadn't explained what he was holding, and what Jeong Yi-Han's hairband had to do with today's interview. The manager calmly said that Jeong Yi-Han's boyfriend had gotten the wrong impression because of the shabby office. Manager thought he had messed with the wrong person, and now it was going to be annoying. He told Chio there was no need to worry. It wasn't what he thought. He had only exchanged a few words with Jeong Yi-Han. Chio interrupted, called Jeong Yi-Han, and stated that the manager shouldn't address someone else's little sister so casually. The manager remained calm, remarking that Jeong Yi-Han's boyfriend was a bit noisy, and then provoked Jeong Yi-Han by saying children without family were vulnerable, clinging to anyone, just looking for something to lean on. He added that while the relationship might feel like family now, he's seen too many girls get tossed aside after meeting the wrong man. At first, they might pretend to care, but once there was nothing in it for them, they always vanished. In this world, people leaned on each other only enough to survive. Chio's anger had surged. The manager continued by saying Jeong Yi-Han needed to wake up and think about where she truly belonged. Jeong Yi-Han cursed under her breath, and Chio had stepped forward. Jeong Yi-Han told Chio that it was okay. She hadn't expected it to be useful, but she had felt a strange instinct from the start and had recorded everything just in case. She asked him to stop now. There was nothing more she needed to hear. Her hands had been shaking, but the truth was she hadn't recorded anything. She wondered what to do. If she stopped now, he would find out for sure. But her body had trembled too violently to speak. While she hesitated, Chio had grabbed her hand. He told her she had done a great job. His words hadn't been solely out of concern. They had been meant to put the manager down so Jeong Yi-Han wouldn't be shaken. Chio couldn't let her be unsettled like that. Jeong Yi-Han then told the manager to come to his senses. It was hardly the time to worry about someone else. The manager had grown furious and asked if she was trying to lecture others when she didn't understand her own situation. Jeong Yi-Han replied that lacking a family didn't mean one clung to just anyone. Giving one's heart away, whether out of love or pity, wasn't something everyone could manage. Jeong Yi-Han added that the office wasn't shabby, but the manager's twisted way of looking at people was. If he had anything else to say, she suggested he think carefully before speaking. One more word, and she would call the police. As she had left, she told him that if he was curious about where he belonged, he could keep going on with his statement. Outside, Chio asked if she was okay. Jeong Yi-Han said perhaps her adrenaline was finally coming down, and it felt like she couldn't walk. Chio then suggested carrying her, but she refused, insisting it wasn't that bad. He smiled and remarked that she had seemed different while talking to the manager, meaning it positively. Jeong Yi-Han thought inwardly that it was all thanks to Chio himself, recalling his words and feeling a blush rise across her cheeks. She asked Chio how he had known she was in the basement. Chio said she shouldn't even let him start, as she had no idea how much trouble she had caused him. After receiving no contact from her for a while, he had grown worried and decided to pick her up, only to discover there was no board game room in the building. He looked around, thinking she might have given the wrong address. Then he returned to the building front, noticed stairs going down to the basement, and followed a hunch that he must check downstairs. Jeong Yi-Han then mentioned there had been someone in the office lobby. Chio said it was empty when he arrived. She then noted that was fortunate. With furious exasperation, he scolded her for feeling relieved and not contacting him immediately if the location had changed. Jeong Yi-Han apologized, saying that hearing him scold her actually made her feel better, as she didn't think she had anyone but him. Chio got confused by her words. He said she must have been terrified and apologized for yelling. Jeong Yi-Han thanked him for worrying about her. Then he asked why she had told the man she had no family. Even if it had been a bluff, how could she say something so cold? He reminded her of the decade he had spent by her side and added that if their parents had heard, they would be saddened. Chio had paused, guessing she didn't really mean it. Jeong Yi-Han, taken aback, realized she needed to correct herself but was met with a flashback of past after her mother and brother passed away. One saying they had never considered her family. Speechless, Jeong Yi-Han later had lain on her bed at home, muttering that she was insane for not speaking to Chio. Days had passed without seeing him properly, and that evening it seemed they would eat separately again. She thought it made sense. Perhaps he was hurt by her words. She told herself she needed to apologize but didn't know what to say. Suddenly, Jeong Yi-Han had received a notification from a classmate inviting her to a group chat. She identified the sender as a fellow from the Korean University Design Department. They greeted each other formally, and Jeong Yi-Han realized it was a freshman group chat. The classmate suggested they get to know each other over drinks. Jeong Yi-Han then agreed, and they had arranged to meet Saturday night. She later realized Sunday was her mother and brother's Memorial Day and worried she wouldn't be able to go, but eventually she had found herself out the day before, hoping to avoid awkwardness with Chio and distract herself from past events. Her friend interrupted her thoughts, asking if she was okay. Blushing, Jeong Yi-Han said she was fine, just not used to these situations. Her friend noted everyone was new and suggested they drink. Jeong Yi-Han friend introduced herself as Hong Da-eun and asks her name, and Jeong Yi-Han replied that her name was Jeong Yi-Han. As she poured drinks, Jeong Yi-Han picked up her glass. Hong then suggested they get along well. Jeong Yi-Han thought it was her first first time drinking, and as she cheered, the next moment she found herself in her room. Confused, she realized she had been drinking just moments ago. A hand approached, and she wondered who it was. It had been Chi-Oh. He reminded her that she said he could enter. 2 hours earlier, back in the party room, Jeong Yi-Han's friend Hong asked her if she wanted a drink. She replied no, insisting that she was fine. Hong teased her, asking, was she already full? Jeong Yi-Han only thought that she had not even drank that much, yet she was already exhausted. Even though drinking might make her feel better, just like in movies or dramas, Jeong Yi-Han guessed it did not always work that way. She wanted to have fun, chat with everyone, and maybe have a little more to drink, but the more she drank, the more her head hurt. Then she thought that perhaps it was because tomorrow was Memorial Day. She felt awkward, sitting stiffly in the middle of the room, wishing she could join the conversation, but the place was so loud that she could barely hear anyone clearly. A fellow student sitting directly in front of her noticed her glooming expression, but the place was so loud that she could barely hear anyone clearly. He called to her, asking if it was too much and whether she wanted to step outside for some fresh air. Jeong Yi-Han realized his name was Taiwan and asked him to repeat himself. Taiwan replied that it was too loud to hear properly and moved closer, saying she looked drunk and asking again if she wanted to go outside. Suddenly, someone from behind interrupted, teasing, "What were those two doing? Could it be the birth of campus couples already?" On hearing that, everyone nearby started gossiping about them. Jeong Yi-Han worried that people would get the wrong idea. Then her friend Hong jumped in, announcing, "Did they hear that there's a super handsome upperclassman in their department?" The other students joined in, gossiping eagerly. Jeong Yi-Han silently thanked Hong for changing the topic. The conversation shifted to Chi-Oh. Students mentioned that he was apparently the ace of the department, but enlisted in the military right after graduation, technically making him a first year. Jeong Yi-Han realized instantly that they were talking about Chi-Oh. The gossip continued, noting that he was rarely seen on campus because he was famous across the university. They remarked on how handsome he was, some only having seen photos. One asked his name aloud. Jeong Yi-Han already knew who it was. Suddenly, Hong stood up, interrupting the chatter, announcing Chi-Oh's arrival. Senior Chi-Oh was there, she said, pointing as he entered the party room with his friends. The girls surrounding them greeted him and began to gossip about his appearance. Some commented that he might look scary, while others suggested that he came because he knew people from their department. One pointed out that he was technically a first year like them. Everyone crowded around to greet him. Jeong Yi-Han felt her face heating up. She thought, why is Chi-Oh Oppa here and what should she do? She didn't tell him anything before she left. And if we bump into each other, he's definitely going to be mad. She doesn't think he's seen her yet. Then she thought she should at least say hi. Hong noticed her hesitation and asked where she was going. Jeong Yi-Han quickly said she was going to get some water, praying that Chi-Oh had not heard her name yet. Unfortunately, he was looking straight at her, completely busted. Jeong Yi-Han thought she came out so he could rest comfortably at home, but now he looks upset. She decided she should at least greet him. As she approached, Chi-Oh turned to face her. Hong called out, offering her water and asking if something was wrong. Jeong Yi-Han wondered if he was pretending not to know her. Hong asked if Jeong Yi-Han suddenly looked sick, and Jeong Yi-Han replied that she was pretending not to know her. Taewon offered to get her a cold drink. While Jeong Yi-Han reflected on everything, she had not apologized for over the past days. Speaking casually in front of everyone felt strange. Blushing, she told Taewon it was fine, but Chi-Oh's behavior still left her a little hurt. Meanwhile, Chi-Oh's friend called out to him, complaining about how long it had been since they hung out and how difficult it was to see him. Another friend asked why he was so silent. Chi-Oh glared furiously at his friend and asked what they were talking about, and his friend waved it off as nothing. During discussions and drinking, Chi-Oh misinterpreted the situation. He thought Jeong Yi-Han was ignoring him as if they were strangers. He left the house out of consideration for her, worried he would make her uncomfortable on the day before Memorial Day, but she was already planning to slip away without a word, making him perceive her as cold-hearted, partying without a care and disregarding his feelings. Chi-Oh worried. Was Jeong Yi-Han planning to ignore him at university as well? Suddenly, one friend called out, "Then why are he drinking alone like a coward?" Chi-Oh apologized and began to explain, but another friend reminded him that he had not contacted anyone after his discharge. Another friend said not to get started, claimed he dragged out Chi-Oh and states that it's because of his little sister. Shocked, the friends questioned Chi-Oh about his sister, as he had never mentioned her. They were told she was grown up, making it seem ridiculous that he refused to leave the house. Someone asked if she was pretty. Chi-Oh replied bluntly, yes, she was very pretty, and his friend demanded to see a photo. Jeong Yi-Han watched Chi-Oh enjoying himself with his friends. Taewon asked if she was okay, noting she looked drunk. She recalled the incident after the interview, remembering herself to apologies to Chi-Oh. She never intended to ignore him deliberately, even if her actions made him feel responsible. She avoided being a burden, knowing it would hurt him. Watching Chi-Oh with his friends, she realized he could smile freely around them. She wondered if he could forgive his foolish little sister for her previous mistakes. Later, back at home, Chi-Oh carried Jeong Yi-Han to her room and laid her on her bed. While fixing her hair, he asked if she finally sobered up. Jeong Yi-Han asked what happened and how she ended up there. Chi-Oh explained that she suddenly got drunk and frightened him. She replied that she remembered nothing. Chi-Oh scolded her, telling her to drink in moderation. Jeong Yi-Han asked what happened next, and Chi-Oh explained that he carried her home. She vaguely remembered the act and laughed. Chi-Oh questioned why she was laughing. Chi-Oh said she just sobered up and suggested they talk tomorrow, but Jeong Yi-Han Yi-Han held his hand, saying she did not want to wait. She suddenly pulled him onto her bed and hugged him, shocking him, saying she had something to tell him. Blushing, Jeong Yi-Han admitted that they had not talked properly for days. Chio nodded and thought she seriously needed to be banned from alcohol. Jeong Yi-Han asked if he remembered a certain day. Chio asked which day. She mentioned the day he called her his sister for the first time, back when she was in 2nd grade. It was raining non-stop for a week. On that day, he saved her after she was left alone at home. She reminded him of his words that he would love her even more than her parents could, and everything would be alright. Even now, thinking about it took her breath away. He said exactly what she needed to hear. She passed out after that, letting her guard down. She vaguely remembered her heavy breathing and the rain on her face. The next thing she recalled was waking to the strong smell of medicine in the hospital. She opened her eyes, noticing Chio arguing with a nurse. The nurse asked for contact information for an adult or a family member. Chio shouted that she was his sister and he was her brother. He begged the nurse to save her, tears in his eyes. Jeong Yi-Han felt emotional, realizing she could never forget that moment. In truth, she passed out from hunger and felt guilty for worrying both him and the nurse. Even thinking about that makes her hungry even now with all the food her uncle and aunt gave her afterward. She did not understand why she still felt hungry. Jeong Yi-Han clutched Chio's arm, apologizing for what happened a few days ago. Chio hugged her tightly, acknowledging that he remembered that day as well, because that was when Jeong Yi-Han truly became his little sister, the day he was at his most.